lot of sharp money on Clemson. The line is ticked down gradually. Right now, at the second, it's 11.5 that Georgia is favored by against Clemson. And to me, guys, I think that an entire philosophy is on center stage today with Dabo Sweeney, who will not embrace the transfer portal. He is giving the Heisman straight arm to the transfer portal. And he said this is one of the notable quotes from the offseason. Dabo said, honestly, every player is technically a transfer. We just signed a whole class of guys transferring from high school.
Oh, please.
I know it is. But going up against Georgia in a matchup like this, you know as well as I do, if Clemson loses decisively, this is going to be a main talking point, is Clemson's head coach just will not embrace the transfer portal, and pretty much everybody else in college football is. You can't get dusted while doing something unconventional and skate, right? You are going to be called out to the nth degree if you're unconventional and losing big, which they could lose in a big way to Georgia today.
Well, and there's a lot at stake for Georgia as well. If you think about the recent history of this incredible football program, they're looking to win their third national championship game in 4 years. They play this game on the road, neutral site, but on the road. And then they also have other top 10 SEC opponents on the road coming up as well. Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss. This is huge for the Bulldogs. You cannot start your season off on a sour note. This is one of those games where if you lose it, if somehow you lose this game, this could taint the entire rest of the season because of the level of competition you're playing against for the rest of the season. This could rattle your confidence, and not everything is perfect for the Bulldogs. I know that they're shored up pretty well at quarterback, but if they're in a situation where they need to rely on the run game, they're turning to, injured and inexperienced players to help toe the rock for them today. This is going to be an interesting game, especially the first quarter of this game. Very curious to see what Georgia does offensively against the Tigers.
Yeah, the backfield is going to be in flux. You're going to hear guys, Cash Jones, Nate Jones, guys that are freshmen, third stringers in the. Now, these are very talented players, but these are not highly regarded players, at least in this particular cycle. I'm interested to see how Mike Bobo, the Georgia offensive coordinator, calls the game, because Clemson knows that they're limited in the backfield. So does Clemson shade a little bit towards defending the pass, which is actually a weakness of Clemson, because they're a little bit banged up in the secondary as well. Again, their number 2 corner situation very much in flux. They've got a couple of guys that are going through some injuries here in the early stage of the season. Are we going to see tempo from Georgia? Are we going to see Carson Beck really take the offense on his shoulders? We talked about this with Drew Aller. The average depth of target, just, minuscule for him. Check down Charlie, dink and dunk Drew. Well, Carson Beck's not that much better. Actually, check down Carson. He is 114th on the average depth of target list from last year. Just not a guy that's made a lot of those big-time throws yet. We'll see what he's asked to do today. But this is a spot for Clemson that they're not in often. But when they are, they've been pretty successful. How about this? Dabo Sweeney, 12-1 against the number as an underdog of 5 or more points, 5-1 against the spread in his last 6 against the number 1 team in the country, according to the AP poll. They tend to manage up in class. Now, last time they played this game, they got absolutely smoked. But I think when they manage up in class, they tend to play well. We'll see if we get a bounce-back effort today after what happened in prior years with these teams. But I'll be honest, this is a Clemson team that is a little feisty, and Georgia's got some questions. So that's why you're seeing this number come down.
I'll tell you what, I don't think it makes sense for Dabo Sweeney to be completely dismissive of the transfer portal. Maybe you want to add a little here, add a little there. You don't want to be completely reliant upon it, fine. But to completely dismiss it, I don't agree with that. But let me give you a rant real fast.
Yeah,
here.
Let's hear it. Yeah, I've been waiting for the portal rant all day long.
Here's the thing, all right? Dabo is going to like this, but hear me out on this. It's a little bit of nuance. Everything I read about any team adding any player from the transfer portal, it is oozing with positivity. I'm sure you've read all this stuff as well, where it's like Team X has bolstered their defensive line with this random dude from the portal, or they've strengthened their secondary. They've solidified their secondary with this random dude from some other team. Listen, it's a lot like NFL free agency. Not every NFL free agency helps his new team. Okay, there are some free agents that do. There are a lot that don't. It's the same thing with the transfer portal. So everything I read about any team and any players they've added through the portal, it's like, oh, they're set. They've added this random dude from UTEP. They're good. Or, you know what I mean? Like, it's like if you hit the transfer portal in life, you don't always upgrade. If you hit the portal for a new job, it's not guaranteed to be better. If you hit the portal for a new girlfriend, not guaranteed to be better. You know? It's case by case. So I'm sick and tired of reading every team and how they've upgraded through the portal. I've yet to read one column that says, hey, they've added this guy, but honestly, they might all suck.
Downgraded through the portal.
Right? Like, I haven't read any of that, and it's just something to keep in mind that not every dude added through the portal is an automatic upgrade. It's just not the case.
Yeah, Dabo Sweeney is going to send you the check. I mean, it's in the mail. No, you got a great point. So let's just talk about differences in systems. I played with a player who's famous both for what he did on the field during his NFL career, but what he's done since then. He's one of the most affable, likable characters that's ever played professional sports. Chad Ochocinco. When he was playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, he was incredible. When he played for the New England Patriots, when he was a teammate of mine, he was not. He had a hard time adjusting to that system. So he was signed to the New England Patriots to do what he did in Cincinnati, obviously, and he couldn't do it. And there were issues catching up to the requests and the requirements of that playbook. That was a big problem. There were things that he was asked to do in that Patriot system that he was not asked to do as a Bengal, and it didn't work. So to your point, Brian, there are times at the collegiate level, certainly at the NFL level, where a player moves on from one place and looks great, moves on to the next, doesn't look so great. And that matters. It changes of environment and coaching and structure, all that matters.
Yeah, I told you guys a story last week when I was, working as an intern for a minor league baseball team in 2009. I was like, what's this stupid Twitter thing that you're making me do?
Yeah.
This is dumb. This is never going to catch on. Who cares what Britney Spears is doing with her? Like at that time, it was really just like celebrities telling you what they were doing. You've got to evolve at some point. I think this is going to be kind of a tipping point year for Dabo and this program. If they are successful in this new climate with their old school regime, then Dabo's still probably going to hold on for dear life and continue to operate this way. If Georgia wins by 40 today and Clemson, barely makes a bowl game because they just don't have the depth and don't have the talent to compete in a very changing, very difficult college football landscape, well, then Clemson's going to have some tough questions to answer. I mean, again, I don't want to go too nuts from what we saw last year because it was year one of a new offense, and it was last year really was a transition year for them. I think this year they should feel a little more settled with Klubnik and Garrett Riley as the OC. The defense did lose a lot, and that's the key. You get 5. How often does Clemson have 5 players drafted on defense, 3 of their most efficient defenders? They lost their top pressure guy. They lost a starting safety that took more NIL money to go to Texas. They're trying to find a new green dot communicator, right? There's going to be radios in the helmets this year for the defenders as well. Jeremiah Trotter, who was that guy last year, kind of the signal caller, he's gone. So there's just a lot of transition for this Clemson defense. And when you don't have even if they're not good players, you're bringing in depth, you're bringing in warm bodies to kind of refill stack the cupboards. And if those cupboards become bare, well, then Dabo's going to have some answering to do. It's not an easy thing in this college football landscape to keep these kids fresh and to keep them engaged. But this is a big year for Clemson and a big game for them to show that they can still compete at the highest level against the best athletes.
Yeah, and I think that Dabo Sweeney, he reminds me of Coach K quite a bit. Remember when Coach K was at Duke, and at first he was not embracing the one-and-dones. He's like, I don't know. They're here 1 year, then they're off to the NBA. It's hard to get chemistry and build continuity. And then he changed. He adapted. He was like, I'm kind of missing out on some great talent over here, And he adapted. I think that's what Dabo Sweeney needs to do. I really do. Like, you can upgrade your roster through the portal. It isn't an automatic. It's not guaranteed, right? Like, I've gone through that whole rant. But I think that you can certainly upgrade your roster at a major program like Clemson if you're open to doing that. I don't think it makes sense to not adapt to that. Something else that's going to be interesting is Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator. Think about his offenses at SMU, at TCU. We're wide open. We're throwing it. We're chucking it left and right. And Dabo's a lot more conservative than that. So I want to see how these guys mesh together. And if Dabo, he seems like the guy that's got his arms folded, scowl on his face, like portal, wide open throwing offense. You got to pound the rock, right? Like, I think there are bits and pieces where Dabo has got to adapt. And it's probably challenging because he's been so successful before.
Yeah.
And I think that you can be set in your ways to a fault. I think he's got to grow. I really do. And I think this is a year where, is he going to grow or is he going to stay the same?
The transfer portal is a little bit like furniture shopping. You've already bought the house. You already know what you want the room to look like, but you just need a new couch. You know what I mean? So you go to the store and you say, you know what? That looks pretty good on the showroom floor. And sometimes you bring it home and you're like, perfect. This was the missing piece. This is what we needed. It sometimes doesn't work out. Sometimes you put the couch in your living room, you go, I hate it. Or it's too low. It's hurting my back when I try to get out of this thing. It's the worst couch. But sometimes, because you already have a feel for the feng shui of the place, it's going to work. And so Dabo Sweeney or any coach who's reluctant to throw into the transfer portal, if you've ever been furniture shopping, you already know how to do this. It's just, you got to do it. It's where we're at in college football. You have to do it. You have to participate. Otherwise, you're going to get left in the dust, like you said, Brian.
Is there a threshold where it becomes unmanageable for Clemson to, just justify the style that they're running their program?
I think if they run it back, Jared, if this is another single-digit win season, I mean, what more evidence do you need?
Yeah.
I mean, the schedule is relatively easy after this game. I mean, they get NC State at home. They have to go to Florida State, who just lost to Georgia Tech. I think Florida State will improve. But I don't see a whole lot of numbers on their schedule. And what I mean by numbers is ranked teams. I mean, at Virginia, Louisville, Virginia Tech, Pitt, Citadel, South Carolina at home. I mean, I don't see any reason why they can't go 11-1 if they lose to Georgia today. And at that point, why would Dabo change course if they're still winning 10, 11 games?
Yeah, man, it's because that's the thing. If they do that and they get to the playoff and then they get dusted, right?
Yeah.
Like at some point to justify what he's doing, he's got to have big playoff success, and they're not even knocking on the door of the playoff. So it's going to be really interesting to see Clemson this season.
You think they make the playoff this year, Brian? What do you think?
I think they've got like what you laid out. If they're, in a 10, 11 win team,
11-1 gets them in.
Absolutely it does. I would say no. I would guess if you're asking me today, I say no.
The odds say no.
Yeah. And no says no.
No says no.
Most importantly.